Shana Tova, everybody. Rabbi Shmuel here, Rashbi in the house. Rabbi Stephen Epstein with my once-a-year vlog, my once-a-year 10-minute Torah for Yom Kippur. Now, Yom Kippur, you get kind of a double shot. Yom Kippur, as we all know, is a unique holiday. It's the only one where we put on a talit in the evening. We have a Torah reading in the morning. We have 6 aliyot. And then in the afternoon, we have another Torah reading, the Mincha, for three aliyot. So that's a total of 9. Now, what are the readings for Yom Kippur? Well, the first one, very appropriate. It comes from Acharei Mot, and it's Leviticus chapter 16, where Aharon, Kohen Gadol, Aaron the high priest, the instructions of how he makes atonement for all the people. So they would assemble into the temple, and this is the famous procedure of the scapegoat. So we've got the 2 goats, and one gets sacrificed as a sin offering for everybody, a chatat offering. That's for the unintentional sin. Remember, there is no offering for unintentional sin. Right? If you've done something and you've wanted to do it, there are consequences, and that has to do with the courts. Or if it's not as severe, then you can repent. And then when you've repented, that's a whole nother process. But here it's like, because we all do things and we didn't realize, maybe we were just kind of having a tough day, and we did the wrong thing and we insulted somebody, maybe we cheated, and we're thinking, wow, what a horrible thing to do, I got to make this up. Kind of as a side note, somebody asked me once as a rabbi, they said, so people have to wait all year for this period of 10 days, the 10 days of awe, to apologize to someone? I'm like, no. This is kind of like your last chance. If you do something wrong, you take care of it right away. Once you realize you've done something, or if you've insulted somebody, or you've broken a law, or you've cheated somebody, you take care of that right away. You make it right. But this is so that you can take stock, and maybe we've rationalized. We do that as humans. Well, they really deserved it. I cheated them, but you know what? They're not nice people, so no, you don't do that. You do what's right. Probably the most poignant case of that is when a child has parents who are, well, let's just say less than good. Okay, they don't imbue the right morals and ethics into the child. Maybe they're not so nice themselves. And the 5th commandment says, honor thy father and thy mother. Do you still honor your parents? Yes, you do. Yes, you honor them. You do everything you need to do. But you do not listen to them when they tell you to do something wrong. That you don't do. So that's kind of the difference. So the important thing is that now we are atoning for our sins. And this is kind of hard to do, right? I mean, to look at yourself and say, wow, So here, Aharon HaKohen Gadol, he's got the goats. The one goat, and this is a lot, okay, is the one that's going to be sacrificed, and the other goat is the one that's going to be sent to Azazel. Azazel has a lot of mysticism to it. Azazel comes from 2 words: Oz, which is strength, and El, which is like mighty. And many of you might recognize the fact that El is also a word for God, El, and it comes from a Babylonian god. Now, it means, we use it as a word for God. The God, our God, is Adonai, Yud-He, Vav-He. That is our God, and that is the only word we use for the God. But, you've got El, you've got Elohim, sword, which is rock, and a few other names that we use. But Azazel, they're sending the goat out into the wilderness. Now, later on, when the Israelites had settled, that goat was pushed over a cliff, to be stoned, to be killed, because they didn't want the goat wandering back. And they would tie a red thread around the goat's neck, and when Aaron had made expiation for the Israelites, that thread would mystically go from red, to white, meaning that the sins had been absolved. And there were instructions for the Kohen Gadol. He would put on the white vestments. He would wash himself, put on white vestments. Now, the Kohen Gadol, the head priest, had 2 sets of vestments. He had gold vestments and he had white. The gold was not worn during Yom Kippur. only white, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of us dress in white for Yom Kippur. It's a color of purity. But also the idea of the gold is the fact that what was gold? That's right, the golden calf, and we don't want to make an association. So he would go in and he would go into the Holy of Holies, and he would go in with a special mixture of incense. And the only time of the year, and he's the only person that ever went into that inner sanctum of the tabernacle. Now we remember that, and this is in the portion of Acharemot, that his sons Nadab and Abihu had gone in there, and they went in there at the wrong time with the wrong incense, and their consequences was swift and sure. So he would make expiation. He would plead for God on behalf of the Israelites, and part of that is still within our service that we do. Some of that to kind of Tokef and a few other prayers. And he would represent the children of Israel, and he would do that, and then the sins would be forgiven, and we're good to go. So that's the morning reading. The afternoon reading, the traditional afternoon reading, is Leviticus 18. And this is kind of an interesting portion because it talks about forbidden relationships. And yes, this is the portion where it says, "Man shall not lay with man." So it starts out with God saying, when you go into the promised land, don't do what the Egyptians did, and where you came from, and don't do what the Canaanites do to where you're going. And it talks about forbidden relationships. Now this is kind of R-rated. Maybe some people see it as kind of X-rated. And a lot of synagogues have switched from Leviticus 18, that portion, to Leviticus 19 chapter, which is the first part of Kedoshim. And Kedoshim is in the middle of Leviticus, and it's got some like 200 some odd commandments in there. And it's a little bit more benign. It's a little easier to swallow. It's not, such a tainted, colorful, if you will, type of a portion. But why do we talk about this? Because your relationships indicates the moral turpitude of the people. We are wanting to be a pure people. We're living in a pure land. You want to have a pure relationships. That's why everything is done according to certain dictums, according to certain ways. There's the marriage, which is 2 steps. There's the betrothal, the kiddushim, and then there's the chuppah, which is in the suim. Because the family is the ultimate unit of a society. If you've got a good family that's inculcating proper values, then people are going to grow up and they're going to be doing the right things. And Torah is just a hop, skip, and a jump. It's no big deal. It's like, oh, don't cheat people. Well, of course. Be honest in your dealings. Of course. Don't spread rumors. Well, no. Why would I? See, and that's part of family, and that's why family is so important. That's why these relationships have to be pure. Now, some people, and one of the relationships, of course, is the idea that you don't marry 2 sisters. Now, people say, well, wait a minute. Did Jacob marry 2 sisters? Yeah, he did, and we saw how that turned out, and that's one of the reasons for the commandment. Now, some people say, well, we didn't have the commandments back then. Well, we kind of did. Torah's been around forever. It's like gravity. It's a law of nature. It's a law of God. You hold the pencil up, you release it, and bam, it goes down, right? Gravity. Well, one of the laws of gravity is you don't cheat people. You're honest. You don't talk about people behind their back negatively to spread rumors. This is part of it. See? So, but there were some finer points, like the idea of relationships, because you don't want to create strife. You marry 2 sisters, there's going to be jealousy, there's going to be strife in the family. It's going to affect the kids. Now the kids are at each other's throats. It's bad enough that there's sibling rivalry already, and that can be managed, especially when they're born of 2 parents, of the same parents. But when you've got this kid's with this wife, and this kid's from that wife, and I kind of favor this wife. This wife's a little cuter than this wife, and this wife is the one that does the menial stuff, and this is my trophy wife over here. You're going to have problems. So this is when we had the monogamous relationships, when we don't do that. So that's one of the things. And also, these pagans, brothers and sisters would get married. They felt, well, they're the same parents, why not? It's a natural, they've got, similar genes and everything. But what they've come to find out down the road, when science got a little bit more sophisticated, is that that's not really great for the gene pool, because, yeah, you might have the strong genes, but you've also got some pretty weaker genes. You don't have offsets. If this one's got a recessive gene and this one's got a recessive gene, you've got a kid that's going to be born, it's going to have some major genetic problems, right? Okay, so, Shana Tova. May you all be inscribed in the book of life. And wherever you're observing, whatever you're doing, I hope you have an easy fast. And happy 5780.